Do you like movies and television? Would you like to learn more about the magic behind the movies and learn how they get from the minds of the creators to the screen? Do you consider yourself a bit of a film buff and would like to know more without going back to school? Then this is the show for you. Mincing Movie Magic is a broadcast designed to stimulate your intellect and explore the minds of screenwriters, producers, directors, and others behind the scenes who create the real magic we see on the screen. Each week, you can listen to screenwriter and producer Tom Blomquist and professional magician Scott Wells as they discuss film and the magic that goes into every production. From time to time, they welcome friends from the movie industry to give other points of view that brought their visions to life on screen. This is Mincing Movie Magic. Please welcome Hollywood writer, producer, and director Tom Blomquist, along with your host, Scott Wells.
Hello there. Cheers. Hey, Tom.
Hello. How you doing, Scott?
Fine. Good to see you this evening.
You too. Although I had some problems earlier connecting, so if I fizzle, you'll have to do magic tricks for people for a while till I come back on.
You're glitching in and out. So it'll truly be movie magic. It'll just be the magic. Maybe it's magic movie mincing.
Well,
it's reversed.
I hope you have a deck of cards handy because you may be doing card tricks for people.
I always do.
Okay.
Indeed. Yes. Well, anyhow, great to be again here with you this week. And we've been having a lot of really great guests over. I think this is our 13th week we were having. No, we had 13. This is 14. Yeah.
14.
Yeah. Tonight's
we do have a snafu tonight, and that is our guest tonight, Walter Painter, the preeminent choreographer and staging expert, had a last-minute unexpected conflict. So he'll be on next week, and I apologize to everybody. I know he does too. But just as a promo for him, this is a man who, he was a dancer. He became a choreographer. He has choreographed 4 or maybe 6 Academy Award specials. Those huge dance numbers that they used to do at the beginning, the Tony Awards, the Kennedy Center honors. I mean, just a million major broadcast events, as well as TV specials for Ann-Margaret and the Debbie Reynolds and all some wonderful performers. And then he staged some big Broadway shows, City of Angels being one in New York, LA, and London. That was a remarkable show. And written by Larry Gelbart, who did MASH, you may know. But anyway, Walter was our neighbor, literally across the street from us in Los Angeles. And our kids grew up together. And he and his wife, Charlene, who's also a choreographer, they worked on the movie Footloose with Kevin Bacon. But they're great people and good friends. And I know he's really excited about doing this conversation. So he apologizes. Sorry about the delay, but
things happen.
But things happen. I mean, this is live, putting it together stuff, and therefore things happen in the live train.
That would lead me actually to a question. What happens like in a film? Let's say one of the actors injures him or herself, or for whatever reason, I guess, pulls out. They don't like what they're doing. They want to quit. There are a variety of reasons why they might. What do they do regarding that?
Everyone just drinks heavily and they cry. Well, look, it's a business. As glamorous as it may seem, it is a business. And so first of all, you have insurance. Production insurance is very expensive. And it's based on the size of your budget, your premium. And so if something happens where the actor has an appendix attack and they have to go into surgery, you try to schedule around them. They're not in every shot, every day, every scene.
Well, like with Tom Cruise, for an example, who broke his leg during the filming of recent Mission Impossible, and he was out for months. And of course, he's the main star. It's not like you can, I guess, shoot around them, but after a period of time, what do they do?
Well, there's not much you can do without him. Plus, he's also the very hands-on producer of those films. So they shut down for that. They shut down for COVID. But he has the kind of clout to tell the studio to just eat it. We'll get back to it when we can, and they're going to accommodate him in every way they can because he's a money-making machine for them, obviously. But in general, if you have a shooting schedule, let's say the schedule is 35 days long. So you have 35 days, 5-day weeks spread out. So you don't want to just take a day off because you have a crew of 60 or 80 or 100 people, whatever that you're paying, even if they're not working. So, and you have deadlines. I mean, you might be able to delay your production a little bit, but you have other actors and direct photography and other people may have another job that's a hard, fast start date.
Right.
And that happens a lot where something gets delayed. They don't even get it started on time. And then they start losing actors because they have other commitments. Maybe they're on a TV series and it starts on a certain day. So it's a collaborative effort, but everybody tries to figure out, well, what's really happening here and how long will it take and what can we do while they're gone? And if you don't have things you can do while they're gone, then you have to take an insurance claim and pay for the downtime. And it's expensive. That's why the insurance is so expensive because, you're talking about, tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars a day, on some of the productions, and so somebody's going to eat that. And ultimately it would be the insurance company.
Well, it comes to mind, for an example, another thing was like in Back to the Future, they had apparently someone else rather than Michael J. Fox who they shot. And then, in fact, some of the scenes still had the original guy in there, whatever, you know what I'm talking about.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Okay. I assume it's not typical, but it does happen in which that a person, for whatever reason, he's just not working out. And they say, look, we're going to have to get somebody else. And they reshoot scenes. And I guess after they get so far into the thing. So.
Yeah. And that would not be an insurance claim. That's a creative business choice. So the director.
Insurance doesn't pay out on that.
Oh, no. Because that's a judgment call. It's not a act of God, as they would call it in an insurance claim. So so they go to the studio, or the studio may have thought of it and said, we're looking at the dailies every day on this, and we're cutting these scenes together, and we don't think this is what we want. We need to recast this and reshoot everything the actor is in. And if you've ever seen, people could find it on YouTube, but there's some stuff comparisons of the original actor and Michael J. Fox, and there are even some scenes like the famous one in the diner where he slugs the bully and runs out, and then they have a big chase throughout the town square on the skateboard. Well, that scene was shot with the original actor, and then they went back and restaged the scene. Everybody remembered their movements and whatever. They probably looked at video and said, okay, Harry, you were standing here, and then you walked over here. And then everybody redid what they did, and they focused just on Michael J. Fox or on over the shoulders of the villain to him and so forth, or him to the villain. But there's one shot that people have identified, the movie freaks, the mistake police, but they found, like where the original actor's hand was in the shot, and it's not Michael J. Fox's hand, it's the other actor. But in that particular shot, it worked in the editing, and they figured, well, nobody's going to know what his right hand looked like. Well, in fact, people caught it because they'll catch everything eventually. But, even on TV pilots, I mean, Big Bang Theory, they shot a whole pilot with another actress in the role of the cute neighbor, and they looked at the pilot and they tested it. They have these focus groups that they show it to, and they said, this isn't working. Let's recast that role and reshoot the pilot. And they did. And they found Kaylee Cuoco, and they redid the whole pilot. That's expensive. I mean, we're talking about a large investment, but they really believed in the show and in the producing team and the cast that they had assembled. They just didn't feel the chemistry, whatever it was working. And obviously it worked like gangbusters
with the new person. Well, you look also like at Last Man Standing with Tim Allen. He had been on TV for a while, very successful series, but for some reason the network booted him, and he went over then to Fox and had a whole new family. I mean, the daughters, the grandkids, and he kind of made fun of it. It's kind of like, you've grown a foot since I've last seen you, just then kind of let it go. I mean, obviously there's an elephant in the room and they address that, so.
It's an inelegant thing to happen when you're doing a production and something goes wrong. Many of the things, as you may have divined when we had Boris Malden on last week, talking about production, with a good production team, or with Tyler Stratton, our assistant director guest, you roll up your sleeves, you put your feet up, and you figure out what is doable, and then you put a new plan in action. And when that fails, then something else has to happen. And worst case scenario, the actor is unable to come back to work. They're sick. Something terrible has happened to them, and they're incapacitated somehow. And they're not just going to walk away and quit, because that would be a really big loser lawsuit for them. So at that point, you may have to pull the plug on the production if they're incapacitated, and take a week or two and recast it, and then come back and redo everything that you may have to do to make it work. And that's something that an insurance policy would help defray that cost if it's a legitimate reason. And it happens. It's life. People get sick, people have problems, and it is a business, but it's not inhumane.
Something I think that happens more often than that is when someone really scores well with the audience, and then they actually write that person into the script who was not but just a bit part or a walk-on, and that probably happens all the time.
Yeah. I mean, that's on a TV show, they'll bring somebody in as a guest star part, and it really clicks, and they're thinking, wow, this is an element that could work for us. And then people are scrambling, trying to figure out how do we work them into the show. And
have you had someone like that, like on Walker or A-Team or something?
Yeah, lots of shows. Where you have your show, and then this is what we wrote, this is what we put together, and it's working. But maybe it's something that hasn't even shown up yet. But someone says, "I got a feeling we need to add something. We need just a different creative element." And it's usually a bunch of producers sitting around talking about it, or the network has a good idea, and then you introduce a character, midstream in the show, whatever, a new neighbor, or it's a new boss in the office, or it's, an old friend comes to town and stays, so there's a lot of ways that works and can work. And more often than not, what you see is at the end of a TV season, the next season, some changes are made, and they'll bring in a new cast member, maybe, somebody younger, because the cast is maybe skewing a little older, or
I was thinking,
too men oriented, whatever.
Like with Curb Your Enthusiasm, and Larry David had, I think, J.B. Smoove, who came in and moved into his house, basically, and he became a major part of the show all of a sudden. I mean, he was a bit part, and then he stayed on, Yeah.
And I don't think everybody, if I'm not mistaken, for example, on the Mary Tyler Moore show, Rhoda, the neighbor, and Cloris Leachman, the manager of the apartment building, they were sidebar, not guest star characters, but they were really supporting characters. I don't know how often they planned on. Oh wait, look at this!
Look at who's here,
Walter.
Yeah.
Walter, you made it.
Never. I'm so sorry. I hope I didn't cause you guys any inconvenience.
No, it's great.
I'm so
welcome.
Sorry.
Tom had just been giving you a glowing introduction here, and it's my pleasure to meet you for the first time, Walter. I'm Scott.
Can you hear us, Walter?
Yeah, pleasure to meet you. Your audio just cut for a second.
Yeah,
sorry.
I explained to them that you had an unforeseen conflict and that we would do this next week or something. So I'm so glad that you were able to dig yourself out of whatever you were in.
I was teaching dance class, and when I realized that I had screwed up, I just ran out of class, told everybody to see him next time, and ran home to the computer. That's so.
Well, thank you.
It wasn't that far away.
So I thought it was NASA calling to have you help them with their next rocket launch or something.
Well, maybe, you never know when they're going to want to do a ballet number on the moon,
Well,
so.
You haven't met Scott Wells, but there he is up there. And
hi, Scott. Pleasure to meet you.
It's indeed my pleasure, Walter. Thank you.
I explained to everybody that you were our neighbor, and you and Charlene, and some of the stuff that you've worked on, and we were just sitting telling stories here and talking a little bit about production. And the main thing Scott was asking was, what happens when this happens on a movie or a show and somebody can't make it? How do you respond to that? And we're just kind of,
well, you saw what happened when Charlton Heston on the Oscars got stuck in traffic and was supposed to come out and make an announcement. And so they ran out to the audience and they grabbed Clint Eastwood and they said, Clint, just get up there and say anything. So he got up on, it was live TV. What are you going to do? Yeah. And so he got up and he was reading from a script, and then 5-6 sentences in, Charlton Heston came running out. He got stuck on traffic in the 101.
It happens. It happens. Totally happens.
And so it wasn't exactly that way with me, but it was close.
Let's get down to this. Tell everybody, if you would, because a lot of people are fans of movies and TV shows, but they probably know less about dance and dance choreography and stage movement than they maybe know about costuming or something. So what is it that a guy like you does on you're choreographing the Academy Awards big opening number? What is that job like? And how many dance numbers might there be on that telecast that you have to create, and how do you do it? What is the kind of process for you?
Good question.
The process is, as you would think. I'm certainly not the only one. I'm a department head of the choreography department, and I work with the department heads and the music and the department head of costumes, and everybody's got their own expertise. So on one of the Oscar shows that I did, I was the choreographer, and Buzz Cohan and Larry Grossman wrote the music, and as Bob Mackey did the costumes, and Ray Clausen did the sets. I don't know if you know these names. These are in variety television.
Oh yeah,
these guys are stars, and we were a team. So we would collaborate. All right, what's on the stage besides the dancers? There's all sorts of scenery and chances to move scenery to music cues, and I always like to take advantage of that, as well as what are they wearing? It's really.
Well, they tell you the theme obviously in advance, so you kind of know if it's going to be a science fiction or dramatic or whatever, I guess. Or do you plan that yourself?
Sometimes I get to choose.
Oh, that's great.
Sometimes the producer will ask me, what do you think? And sometimes they'll tell me, here's what we're doing. So it's really not always the same, which is what I always liked about doing this job, is that every time I went to work, it was, you've got to put on your thinking cap, right?
How much time are we talking about?
Yeah.
From the day you walk into CBS Television City or wherever it is for your first meeting to showtime, how much time are we talking about for you to conceive, create, and collaborate?
Well, it's a sort of a loaded question, Tom, because each show has a different structure. Let's take our weekly television show that we used to do, the variety shows. In those shows, we had 5 days, taping day and back 4. And that's what, so day 1 was day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, we shoot. And so day 4 is pre-record. But on the Oscars, I would get, or shows of big shows like that, I would get, say, 10 days of pre-production and another 10 days for rehearsal. So it was always different. And we sort of, if the producer who was in charge of the money was collaborating with us, he would say, oh, no, you can't have 10 days. I don't have the money for 10 days, but you can have 6 or you can have 8, whatever. So we have to sort of figure that all out before we ever walk in to rehearse. And once we figure out the music, that starts way in advance. And then we get to do the
Yeah, the music comes first, I guess, and then they give you the music, and then you kind of in your mind start thinking, how will the dance match the music?
Yes, and what I'm thinking of now is that there was an Oscar number I did called "Dancing on the Silver Screen," with starring Donald O'Connor, and that was about the movies and all of the fabulous material that has come to light over the through our childhood and what many people these days have never seen. But they wanted to talk about musical movies and the history of movies at the same time. So I knew that going in, and I happened to be a sort of a buff about that. So I just started working with the theme of Dancing on the Silver Screen, and we went through the decades about, Busby Berkeley to Jack Cole to Hermes Pan, right on up into the current day. And Donald sort of was the glue to that. And the idea I had was to use a Titan crane for Donald to be on and to sing from. So we rolled him around the stage on the crane and from pillar to post and person to person. And it's sort of, he acted as the glue, as if he was the director of this. And then he got off the crane and started tap dancing, which, brought the house down. He's so wonderful. And that's sort of how that number worked. But that's not every number. It's some of them they're completely, every experience, there's no two alike.
I was just thinking like Esther Williams. I mean, there'd be something completely different where there's actually dancing in the water. Did you ever coordinate or choreograph anything like that?
A water ballet, I did one. Yes.
Okay.
I worked on a show at, when Warner Brothers gave up the name of Warner Brothers and it became the Burbank Studios. And then they bought it and Sony sort of took it over. And because that's when John Peters and who was his partner, Tom?
John Peters and oh my God,
I can't think of it at this moment.
There might be somebody online here who's watching who can tell us.
Peter Goober. Was it Peter
Goober?
That
Goober
sounds
Peters.
correct. Yeah.
Goober Peters,
Anyway, so they made Sony, Warner Brothers made an offer to Sony to buy it back. And Sony sold it to him. And so when they did, they had a night of celebration. And that was, I had 1,000 dancers in that. I couldn't believe it. You can look it up on an old news show somewhere. It's really incredible. And I think we worked on that for probably a month, and it wasn't televised.
All right, so let me flip this a little bit. So you've also done some movies. You did the one with Whoopi Goldberg and Gerard Depardieu,
right?
Who danced, but I'm assuming neither one of them was an active dancer or even a trained dancer.
That's a very safe assumption. Yes.
Okay. So, but your job is to make. I assume there was not. I don't remember the film specifically anymore, but I remember they did some kind of I think a ballroom dance or something.
Sort of Fred and Gingerish, right?
Yeah, and they did really well. And it wasn't like a comedy goof on dancing. They were supposed to actually dance. So as a choreographer, you've got still a limited number of days with them, hours even. I don't know what you had. But how do you take somebody that's not a proficient dancer and do what the movie magic requires, which is make them look as good as possible?
Well,
that's a magic trick.
I pass it back to the director, and I just say that who happened in this case to be Norman Jewison. And I said to him, Norman, they have to move a little bit. They can't, they can't just, we can't let them stand there or there is no number. They have to do something. So they have to be able to do something. And they came to rehearsal the first day and they were very nervous, but we used Dancing in the Dark. And I made it very romantic. So that I knew they could play. So they started just holding each other and swaying to the music, and then started moving around the floor. And then it got a little more broad, and a little more broad, and a little more comedic. And that basically was it. And they did a very elaborate sort of Fred and Ginger set, to put them in. And you don't get it at first that they're spoofing but then when you do, you like the fun.
What was the name of the movie?
Bogus.
What was the movie?
Bogus.
Yeah. It was not one of Norman Jewison is a fabulous director, and this unfortunately was not one of his big hits. This was certainly in the heat of the night, but it was musical, and he's a television director from the old Bell Telephone days, so he knows what he is doing with that camera.
All right, so you also have a long-standing, very strong relationship with Ann-Margaret.
I do.
You've done her Vegas act. You've done TV specials with her. Now here's somebody that's been dancing and singing and acting since she was a kid in Hollywood, basically, dancing in those Elvis movies and stuff. So that relationship, I mean, how many projects do you think you've probably done with her, different incarnations of her work? And how does something like that evolve? Like from the day you met her and said, "Hey, it's nice to meet you, Walter," to whatever your most recent thing was together, that has to be an extraordinary journey.
It was a life-changing journey. I met her when I was a dancer on the movie of Viva Las Vegas, and was my first job.
I didn't know you were in that movie. That's
I
cool.
I was. Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
With Elvis Presley and Ann-Margaret. Wow.
Yeah. And I was a dancer. There were 6 or 8 of us guys. David Winters did the choreography. He had just come fresh out of West Side Story. And so I met her on that movie. And then later, a few months later, after we had done Viva Las Vegas, she was going to open at the Riviera with the now famous motorcycle act, where we had 8 Harleys across the stage. And David was again the choreographer, and he hired me to be part of that. And then it came time, after she was a huge success with that motorcycle act, they had 3 or 4 more appearances to make. It was a multi-appearance deal. So they asked me, could I restage the act in which I was a dancer? And of course I could, because I was just one of those people who learned everybody's part. And so I went in and restaged the existing act, and I didn't choreograph it. I just redid it, what was already there. And on that experience, I became very good friends with Ann-Margaret, as well as her husband, Roger Smith, and their manager, Alan Carr. So Roger Smith, Alan Carr were partners in a company called Rogue Allen, and Ann-Margaret was their major client. And so I got to be on the ground floor of that explosion that Ann-Margaret created in Las Vegas and in her musical films, especially those with Elvis. And so, and I stayed with Ann-Margaret.
How long was she in that show in Vegas?
Well, that first show played 4 weeks. And then she agreed to come back 4 more times for 4-week stints. So she had 4 appearances a year for 4 weeks. So she was going to work 16 weeks. So then when those 16 weeks were up, she was asked to come back now to the Las Vegas Hilton, as opposed to the Riviera, and asked me to do. I got to do a new act for her, since we had been successful in the first one, and we were all very friendly. And my wife Charlene, who was a brilliant dancer, was very helpful to all of us, especially Ann-Margaret, because she had a girlfriend on the set, and they got along very, very well. My wife is an exceptional dancer, and was in Ballets USA with Jerome Robbins and has done many Broadway shows, assisted Michael Bennett and assisted Peter Gennaro. And I don't know if you know these names, but to us, they're stars. And so she was very, very helpful in that, in my pursuit of a career as a choreographer. And she, everybody knew her, she knew everyone. And so wherever we went together, we had a great vibe together, you know? So if Walter and Charlene were around, then you were in good hands. You know, I couldn't do it, she could do it. And if she couldn't do it, I could do it. So we were sort of very much of a team, you know, through that. And, you know, we're married.
How does that differ? How does it differ, Walter, in choreographing something for the stage like that, or let's say Broadway, or again, just the stage, versus when you're going to be on television, we have a multiple camera shots, and they're going to be having close-ups and everything like that. Do you choreograph differently for the stage than you do for television, and how so?
Absolutely, absolutely. You have to deal with the camera. So if someone is dancing and they're moving, you know, you can't relate to this as much as you can relate to that, to something still and understanding. So you have to build in a stop down so that they can take a close up, or they can look at the costume, or they can see the scenery. You have to make allowances for the camera. You do. Camera's king.
I just had to drop out for a second here. I lost my connection. I wanted to ask you about the Ann-Margaret, the show where she would do 4 weeks on, and then 4 weeks later, and then 4 weeks later. So every time you would come back, you inevitably lost some dancers. People had other jobs, so you had to recast those parts. Maybe all of them have new auditions. How quickly? When you say, okay, we're gonna open a week from Saturday.
Well, no,
or whatever.
We knew in January where we were going to be every month of the year. Okay. So I knew she was going to play there. I knew she was going to be there in March. I knew she was going to be there in July, and et cetera, et cetera. So
people fell off. People fell off of the cast. Fell out. What kind of audition process, or do you already just have names of people to just call and say, I need you in Las Vegas? And how
sort of a combination, Tom, sort of a combination. Sorry?
And how much rehearsal would they typically get to work into a show that's already kind of a well-oiled machine with a huge star like her?
Well, we would bring in the new dancer, teach them the choreography, and then which would take a little longer, so we didn't need everybody for that. And then once we taught that particular the new dancer, the choreography, then we would bring the rest of the cast in, and we'd put them in it, you know, and they would see who they were next to and what they were wearing and all that business. And then we would bring finally Ann-Margaret in, and we would work for steady for a week to put to get back up on our feet.
Get back. Okay, got it.
Maybe 10 days, you know.
Yeah, that's interesting to me because it's quite different than your typical narrative talking heads TV show. For me.
In Viva Las Vegas, I assume that you were also choreographing for Elvis Presley as well.
I did not choreograph Viva Las Vegas. I was a dancer, performing.
Okay, I understand.
In Viva Las Vegas. Yeah, no problem.
Thank you for clarifying.
David Winters was the choreographer in that.
So, Walter, another side of your amazing career is that you staged the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus a couple of years ago. I
sure did.
Now, what the hell? How do you? I mean, you got three rings, literally a 3-ring circus with elephants and jugglers and clowns and trapeze guys and all that stuff. What is that job for someone like you? I never understood it, and I've always been intrigued. So I'm glad we're talking about it now because that's an amazing thing to me.
It was amazing. There's 110 people in the cast, and so and they are not dancers. There's a handful of dancers, but so we relied a lot on the scenery and the costumes and the music, especially the music. And, Ringling Brothers always had wonderful orchestras, much to, I'm sure you're surprised to hear about how gifted these orchestras were and their musical directors. And so they would get an act, and they would have to create music for that act, and they would have to create music for what we call the spectaculars, like the opening number. And the first Ringling Brothers Circus I did, what we used a version of Loveliest Night of the Year that Sly Stone had recorded. I'm sure you probably remember it. What did he do? Hurry, 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 boom, 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 boom. And he really got rocking with that thing. And so I thought, well, that's a great way. I'll do a rock and roll circus, So that was the first year I did it. And we also had in that year David Larible, who is the most gifted clown I have ever seen. Really, really incredibly funny. And so there was a combination of the animals and the acts and the production and very lavish costumes and the trapeze. There was some thrill acts, and there was the big motorcycle ball, and we just get the hard part is getting all that stuff on and getting it off. Wow. Yeah. So we have to keep putting something in ring number 1 so that we can remove the scenery in ring number 3. So you don't, and it's the ring number, it's in black, so you can't see it. And those guys are walking around. The working men are just incredible in Ringling Brothers Circus. And I will be honest with you. There's a guy by the name of Ken Feld, who is the producer of Ringling Brothers. That show is no longer, as you know. But he's so gifted as a producer. You can't believe it. He knew everything. He would call me up and go, look, Suzanne in the third number has a run in her tights. I would like you to call up costumes and tell them to fix that. I go, oh, geez, okay. I mean, I never got those kind of notes from producers before ever. He knew about everything that was going on in that show. He was very, very well versed in the art of the circus world. He really was.
Do you have a favorite gig that you've done? I know you've had so many, Debbie Reynolds and all these interesting people, and the City of Angels play, which was extraordinary. But is there something that when you go to bed at night, it stands out as like, that's the one I'm really proud of?
Well, that's hard. Yeah. I think the one thing that if I was known for anything, it would be the Donald O'Connor number on the Oscars. That was really a joy. It was a favorite subject matter of mine, the history of musical films. And I loved working on that. We had a lot of fun. 36 dancers. It was, and Bob Mackey's costumes were to die over, and the sets were beautiful. And, they give you every tool you need, is what they did do in the Oscars. What you needed, you got it.
Well, he and Fred Astaire and Gene Kelly, those guys, they weren't even human, were they? They were so gifted.
Yeah. Well, that was my question about the differences between, let's say, Debbie Reynolds and Ann-Margaret. I would imagine some people have certain skills that others don't. Some doesn't mean they're better. Sure. It's just they're different. Sure.
Yes.
Did you like working with one because it was easier than the other?
There's nobody on this planet easier to work with than Ann-Margaret. Nobody. She's the sweetest, nicest person you will ever meet. And I'll tell you, if she met you today,
I would like that.
You didn't see her for 2 years, she would walk up to you and pick the conversation up right where you left off.
Wow.
She's just has that gift. And concerning Debbie or Ann-Margaret, I mean, Debbie is a comedian more than she is anything. She's funny as hell. Have you seen her Barbara Streisand impression and her other impressions? She does Mae West. I mean, she's a riot. And so Ann-Margaret doesn't do that kind of thing, but Debbie does. So it's not unlike any other major artist. You know, you have to be familiar with who they are and what they do. So once you have that kind of knowledge, so I'm not going to give Whoopi Goldberg, you know, a knee slide, so because it just doesn't work. So, but but what Whoopi could do is, in the middle of a dance number, she can look over her shoulder at the camera and get a big laugh, and we love that. You know, as a matter of fact, sometimes it's better than dancing. You know.
I assume that skills like dancing, because it is athletic skill of some sort, diminishes over time as far as just your body aging or arthritis or whatever. I mean, I look at someone like Cheetah Rivera, you know, till the end. I mean, she was still dancing, and other people like that are just phenomenal, but some
still
aren't.
Cheetah still is working, and beautifully, I might add. Yeah.
Okay.
But you're also very correct in that your body does rebel. You know, you can't. I certainly can't do what I did when I was in West Side Story. I can't do it.
And so when you're choreographing for people of a certain age, I assume you take that into account to make them look as good as they can for that their body.
They would shoot you if you didn't. Right.
Well, and you know, it's like singers when they get older, they can't always hit the notes. They don't have the range they used to have. And so the arrangements are adjusted by the musical equivalent of you to accommodate that, where they won't hit that note. They'll do it in a different key. They'll have backing singers hit those notes for them,
etc.
You see a Beach Boys show, there's 8 guys back there hitting all those harmonies because those guys are all 1,000 years old, and they don't quite sing like they did when they were 25, you know, understandably.
True enough. And also, you know, I think probably the most important thing is that we're in show business. So we know after a while, after doing it for as long as you've been doing it, and I've been doing it, Tom, that you have to, you learn what works and what doesn't, and you learn what to give this artist and not give this artist. And you, like for instance, I did an act for Engelbert Humperdinck. He wanted to do a dance number. And we went, Engelbert Humperdinck wants to do a dance number? Are you kidding? And we went, you know, except when we got in the rehearsal hall, we found that he moved very well. He could handle himself just fine. Now, is he going to play the part of Riff in West Side Story, or Bernard? Is he going to do what George Chakiris does? No, but he had very full of charm, and he could, in control of his body, and could partner the girl, and you know, it was. I just took that and put that all in sort of a pile and made it come out right. Ann
and I saw a show that you did in Los Angeles with Tony Danza. You did a one-man show with him.
I did, by God.
You know, so here's this guy, this prize fighter from a sitcom, who wanted to sing and dance and tap dance and stuff, and he did. And that was Walter Painter, wall to wall.
Wow.
So, and it was a terrific show, and he did that for quite a while, as I believe.
He's still doing it. Yeah.
What was that process? He says, Walter, I want to sing and dance and tap dance. Come on over. What an interesting bit of casting, because I wouldn't have thought to call him to ask to do a show like that. But he was terrific.
He knew what nobody else knew. He knew he could sing. He knew he could dance. I had seen him at Debbie Reynolds' rehearsal hall, rehearsing or taking class. I'm not sure which. And it's the expression we use in tap dancing is lay iron. You know, he can lay iron. He can really, he can tap dance. And I went, wow, he's way better than I thought he was. And so the writers of his show were the same writers I worked with on the Oscars, and they decided that Tony and I would be a very good pair, and it turns out we were. And so I understood what he wanted, and gave him some challenging things to do, which he did very well. And he had a sixth sense about it, you know. Some people, you put a microphone in their hand, they don't know what to do, but not him. He knew exactly what to do once he got
all charm. I mean, he was. You talk about Engelbert Humperdinck being charming and smooth.
Mm.
Tony Danza was like this veteran Vegas
Yes.
lounge act of a guy, and
He
who
comes-
would have thought it?
He comes with that, he's just
Yeah.
part of his life. He just comes with it. Yeah. And he loves it. And that's what drew me more than anything was his love for doing it,
Well, you mentioned
and he's fearless,
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I was going to say, you mentioned earlier that you were a dancer in Viva Las Vegas and later a choreographer. My question is, how long were you a dancer before you decided, hey, I can choreograph for others then as well?
Oh,
How
10
did you
years.
transition?
It took 10 years to do it.
Overnight
because-
success.
A 10-year overnight success. Yes. And, the thing about being a choreographer is at one point, everybody has to go away and let you do what you do because the producer can't choreograph. Nobody can choreograph except the choreographer. So at one point, once you figure that out, how can I put this? The way to do it is to do what you believe to be correct and or best for the show. And once you start doing that, but before they anyone will give you that opportunity, they need to get a sense of you that you are not going to go, oh my God, I don't know what to do. It's like Tom, when you was a writer, you can't go home and go, gee, I didn't do it last night, guys. I didn't know what to do.
No, you can't.
I couldn't think of a joke, so I didn't do anything. They have to know that that's not going to happen.
That is exactly right. So I think people will be really interested. You said you're a film buff, and the classic musicals, and of course you see all these that are the movie ones. So is there one classic old-time musical that is a favorite for you, and then one that's more contemporary? In the kind of Moulin Rouge, Chicago, chorus line kind of vintage, something that's more contemporary. What would you pick as the just
the era,
as it were, the old ones, and then maybe your favorite of the newer ones, the Bob Fosse shows or whatever.
My favorite old one is Seven Brides for Seven Brothers.
Oh, that was a good one.
I really
and
Michael,
what about that speaks to you?
Well, what I enjoy is when in a musical number you can move the plot forward and to a new place. And Michael Kidd, who was the choreographer of Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, is very gifted at doing that. So if you look at the number, you'll notice that the story's in part one when it begins, and at the end of that number, the story's in a new place. And that's the secret of making that work. Same on Broadway. You want to get the musical number to move the story. You can't always do it, but because otherwise, what I always say is that dance is not a group of steps. It has to have a reason for being there, and it has to move the story, through the.
So you work closely with the director, I guess, in that.
Oh yes,
regard.
very closely, yes. And of the new contemporary stuff, I'm telling you, it's not even out yet. It opens, I think, tomorrow. Is In the Heights. The previews I've seen of that looks absolutely outstanding. Lin-Manuel Miranda's first Broadway musical has been made into a movie. And I think his name is the man who directed Crazy Rich Asians. Thomas Cho, is it? Chow? I'm not sure of his name. But he did a wonderful job in that film. Did you guys see that film?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so the same director who did that is doing In the Heights. And they're talking about in New York and Washington Heights. And so it looks great. Not good, great. You know,
You say it's a musical that was
yes, brand
that
new.
was on Broadway? Okay, and then
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
made into a movie.
Yes,
So,
you know,
Walter-
Lin-Manuel Miranda.
But it's not the same as Hamilton. I mean, Disney
Yes.
just put the camera on the stage basically for Hamilton, but I assume this is different.
This is different, yes,
Okay.
but the same author.
More like West Side Story, the transition, the difference between the play and the movie. They were
I don't think it's anything like West Side, but it's in that respect. It is a more traditional musical. I assume I haven't seen it yet, but I'm really looking forward to it. It looks exciting as hell. You can probably see the trailer on YouTube. And
so I think one that I liked a lot, I mentioned it, Moulin Rouge. I'm not a big fan of movie musicals in general, mostly because they usually stop the show to sing a song and tell you how we're supposed to feel. And so much of that feels on the nose to me. But that one kind of blew my mind because he reinvented the movie musical with, the contemporary songs or the classic rock songs and some big, monstrous production numbers and really interesting casting. I just thought that was really great. I don't know what it was like from a dance and choreography point of view, but
seeing Cabaret was that experience for me, and I saw Joel Grey in that performance of Cabaret, and that changed my world to loving musicals ever since I saw that. And you work with Joel Grey, is that right too, Walter?
Yes, I have several times. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, Liza Minnelli's a friend of yours as well, so you have.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's another great dancer. I saw Liza with the Z show where she was just singing different numbers and dancing and everything, and that was a phenomenal show.
Bob Fosse did that.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah, he directed and choreographed that, and she's extraordinary, Liza Minnelli. She really is. She can sing, dance, and act. She's the real deal, just like her mom.
Right. There was something Tom and I were talking about earlier, and this is just because of people who are watching this broadcast. Then to clarify as well, I had a question about whether choreography also included blocking of what the actors are doing and walking from room to room or to the window or whatever. And he said, no, that's really what the director does. The choreography is dancing. It's completely different. So I just wanted to throw that out there just to how to clarify the difference between blocking and choreography.
Depending if they're singing or not. If they're singing, then the choreographer might have a suggestion for the director. But otherwise, if the director might not want you to offer any suggestions, he may have an idea how he thinks it works for the piece as an overall. In that case, you stand by until needed, which is what I do. If when I was working with Norman Jewison, he didn't need me every minute. He only needed me when he needed me. So, otherwise he was doing what he wanted to do with the piece. And so I think that we respect the director because he's the guy, and we're there to help him and to see to it that the people who wrote this, that their vision gets seen, and the director's been charged with seeing to it that happens. And so, and the choreographer we're all in service to the piece. The show's the boss. So we do what's best for the show. And
you have also
asked the director.
You have also directed.
Yes, correct.
You've put up classic, iconic theater pieces. You've directed original, new theater pieces.
I have.
So your transition from choreographer who is subordinate to the director's vision to being the director, can you describe for people as an artist and a craftsman what that's like for you to have the full Monty, at your disposal as opposed to your specific roles?
You have to feel confident that your vision and in conjunction with the writer, that the two of you are on the same page. Is what way I do it. And so we discuss scenes and we discuss the point of the scene, then it's up to the director to see to it that information gets given to the audience. I did direct A Few Good Men, a production of A Few Good Men, and that's a whole other ball of wax than choreography. It's just very different. And but it's not unlike it in the fact that it has a beginning, middle, and end, and you have to recognize where you are in the play and what where the play is supposed to be saying, and you have to just, watch it. See,
in that regard, does that change? Sometimes, I mean, during the production of that, I mean, just like scripting, they'll go back and say, look, this script isn't quite working. And I assume sometimes the dance isn't quite working. And you're going to have to go back and say, okay, we're going back into the dance practice hall and rework this completely.
Yes, I have done that. And, what I go by is, okay, it's choreographed. That part is good. But do we like it? Now we have to like it.
Yeah.
If we don't like it, then we have to go back and fix what we don't like. But that's the only thing you have to go by is what you like and what you don't like. Or I could do it better, or so-and-so needs a solo spot, or this character gets lost in the number and needs to be brought forward, or whatever the many, many sequences are, reasons are for going back and fixing.
When you did the Tony Awards broadcast, now that's a unique physical audience because they are all theater people, right? I mean,
Right.
That's an audience that have seen it all. Some of them have done it all. You've got other choreographers, friends of yours. The pressure it must be extraordinary on a guy like you presenting a piece or a bunch of pieces for a telecast in a theater in front of people like that, as opposed to, I don't know, a regular special or even the Oscars. Am I correct in thinking that must be an exhilarating and terrifying experience?
It is that. I think exhilarating is a very good way to describe it. And I know on the Tonys, because of who's sitting there, you want it to be your best work. So I just went about it carefully. I was as careful as I could be, and only did what I believed in. And so if you want to shoot me because it wasn't any good, well, okay. I screwed up, but I believed in it, so I'm okay. It's when somebody makes you do something you don't want to do, and it bombs. That's you go home and hide your head.
And that happens to everybody. We all have done it.
Nobody's above it. No.
Every actor, every producer, every writer, every director. Everybody reports to somebody.
Yes.
Everybody has a boss, and sometimes the boss has just really horrible ideas, and you have to do them.
And not my horrible ideas, but he just got it wrong. Made a mistake. He thought it was this, and it was really that, and directed you to do that, and you're going, but. He says, don't but me, just do it. Okay. Yeah. You're the boss,
and you do the best you can, and you do
the best you can.
I have a question also that leads to something completely different. That has to do with the foundation, the Nancy Painter Foundation.
Oh, thank you for that. Yes. Yeah. I was raised by a single parent. My mother killed herself raising my sister and I. And we had a lot of very difficult times. And so when I grew up a little bit, I thought that having a foundation that would look after mothers with children, single mothers with children, because I know the pain and I know the problems that they face. So I tried to build this organization that in advance was be able to answer what I know they're going through. I know that they don't have enough money. I know that the phone bill hasn't been paid. I know that the rent hasn't been paid. I know they got beat up by their husband and they have to now move. And, it's just, I know those problems. I know what they are. So because I knew that, I felt might be able to do something about it. So we started this foundation and, we have raised hundreds of thousands of dollars to help these mothers with children over the years. And we had the Nancy Painter as my mother's name. We named it after her, the Nancy Painter Foundation. And it would be great to say that, nancypainter.org is our website, and that anybody who cares to look at it and consider donating to it would be very welcome.
Is it Nancy Painter or nancypainterfoundation.org?
nancypainterfoundation.org.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, he's running that on the screen right now for you because I wanted to be sure that we mentioned this because it's wonderful thing that you've been doing. How many years has it been you've been formally doing that?
20 plus, 25 plus, maybe, a long time.
Do you still have the house?
The Nancy Painter home is no longer because we were taken over by the Department of Mental Health here in LA. And so now what we do is we have connected up to what we call community partners, such as the Alexandria House and the Elizabeth House, who help pregnant women or mothers with children. And now we're recently about to begin a partnership with Union Rescue Mission in downtown LA and out in Sylmar. And they're all the same problems. I know these problems, they don't, each mother who faces them is facing them for the first time. But it's for years, same problem. Domestic violence, no money, children are hungry, no shoes, no lunch money. No, it's all of those horrible things that make a child feel like they're less and less and less. And so those kids are going to grow up. And we don't want them to feel that way when they become adults because that is going to hurt the world a lot. So
that's a great mission statement there you got, Walter.
Yeah. Thank you.
And we've been to some wonderful fundraising events that you have
done.
Yes. Our friend Debbie Boone performed at one. I remember that was really fun. I believe Debbie Reynolds did one, did she not?
Yes, she did.
Yeah.
And Tony Danza.
A wonderful show.
As well as Joel Gray and Rita Moreno. They performed for us. It's been a wonderful experience. It really has. And the money, basically, these moms are not, they're not dumb. They're smart. They just don't have the wherewithal or the money to move their life along. And they have no help. One parent, it's hard to do.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. That's proud of you for keeping it going and growing it, and it's. I know it occupies a lot of space in your life, in your house. I know that. And
right.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Really. The older I get, the less I dance, and so I devote my time to that.
That's great. Well, I'm glad you had time to join us here then this evening, and it's been wonderful. It's a pleasure talking with you and all the questions that you answered for us over here.
Thank you for having me. Are you kidding? I appreciate every opportunity I get to talk about the Nancy Painter Foundation. I take as much of it as I can because we help a lot of mothers. We really do.
And I know you do. And when you said you've been doing over 20 years, that's. Yeah, I'm thinking back. That's when we met you, and in our neighborhood, and you were doing that. That's been a long time. So, but it's great to see you again.
It's good to see you, Tom. My best to Katie and Annie and Ann, and your grandchild, who I haven't met.
No, we don't have a grandchild. No grandchild.
You don't? Oh, I thought you did.
No.
That's all
Not
right.
yet.
No.
I don't have any either. So
Well,
you're in the same
okay.
club.
All those things will happen in good time. So
Walter, if
I'm
you're going to
gonna
hang around,
I'm going to go out
for
and rent some. No, are we done?
We are. I was going to say, I was going to take you out of the feed here for a minute, but after we end the broadcast, if you want to hang around for a second, just say a few more words, talk with Tom, just hang on. And I want to, again, thank you as I take you off. Thank you very much for being here. And there we go. That turned out great, Tom. I'm glad we had a little chat to begin with to talk about this kind of thing. And then he
didn't have to sit in the green room. I hope he didn't get a speeding ticket driving from his studio to his house to get on the show. I had no idea he was going to do that, but that was great. So
I didn't know he was that close. Wow.
That's wonderful. But anyway, thank you so much for hosting another fun conversation. And we will be seeing you next week.
Next Wednesday, yep, we'll have a new guest as well as we've had in the past. And some of these people are friends of yours, and I've got a few friends who are in the business as well, and I hope to bring them on sometime in future weeks as well as things come about. So best to you, Tom and Ann and Katie, and I appreciate everyone else who is coming here. I would recommend, if you would please, to or I should say subscribe to the YouTube channel, so this way you're notified each time we go live with these shows. So subscribe, just go to youtube.com/Texas Magician and subscribe to the channel, and that way that you'll get notified whenever we will be going live. Likewise on Facebook, be sure to like our page there, which is Mincing Movie Magic. We have, I don't know, we're probably about 1,000 people, I think, who like it now. It's slowly growing, and we could appreciate you doing that as well. And then once you've liked that page, you'll be notified again there through Facebook whenever we're going to be going live from week to week, each Wednesday evening. This has been a regular thing. This is the 14th week we've done this, and really we don't have any end in sight as long as Tom says he's having fun and I'm having fun. And I enjoy hanging out with you.
I've hated it from day one, but it's okay.
Well, that's just because that's the kind of guy you are. You just are an old curmudgeon.
That's it. Exactly.
Emphasis on the old.
Thank you for noticing.
Noted. Well noted. And so until next week, that was Tom Blomquist. This is Scotty out.
Thanks for being with us. Please join us again next time for Mincing Movie Magic.